Here's a new Trump campaign gimmick that you could just dismiss as a kind of a joke, a dig at people who are concerned about the environment on a daily basis, but it's actually linked to something much larger. Donald Trump's campaign is now selling Trump-branded plastic straws because they say, quote, liberal paper straws don't work. Okay, people do all kinds of things in politics. But the Trump administration is also taking direct policy aim at America's most important conservation law. So important, you've definitely heard of it, the Endangered Species Act. It has been credited by experts with saving from extinction the humpback whale, the grizzly bear, and panda bears. Now, come on, who is against panda bears? The Trump administration has released new guidelines that try to gut the way the law works, basically making it easier to take a species off, yes, the Endangered Species Act list. That's kind of a key part of the Endangered Species Act. Now, these rules make it harder to also deal with the threat of climate change when considering the protections for animals. Think about polar bears or sea lions and over 1,600 other species that have been protected by the Act at some point in time. The rule change comes as the United Nations warns 1 million plant and animal species face the risk of extinction because of us, because of people, even though, as I mentioned, many of us love animals. Now, Donald Trump's rollback would let mining and drilling companies proceed with projects that would otherwise be banned under the law. And this is big. For the first time, regulators could be allowed to consider what they call the economic impacts, aka losing money, before animals get listed for this protection. And that falls in line with something else, which is the goals of at least certain top Trump officials, including the Interior Secretary, who's a former oil lobbyist, and his department, drafted these changes. All of this adds to really a litany of Trump actions that we journalists have been tracking, and environmentalists say clearly weaken key protections. You have the pullout from the Paris Climate Agreement, you have Obama-era fuel efficiency standards that have been diluted, and a whole lot more. Now, think about the politics of all this, because it's easy to look at this and the straws and the trolling and say, well, this is how it always is, and that's what happens when Republicans are in control of the White House. Well, I'm actually here to tell you that talking point wasn't always the case. Remember, this act was passed by a Republican president, Nixon, who argued a strong economy and clean environment can go together.
There are those sometimes who say that the two are in conflict, that it is impossible to have a great productive society like America, the most industrialized nation in the world, in a clean environment. We can have both, and we shall have both.
And we shall have both. You know, you see any video of Nixon and you remember Democrats these days are often comparing Trump to him on issues like obstruction of justice or what's impeachable. Well, here is a contrast to Nixon, and it's one many Democrats and environmentalists object to. They want Donald Trump to be more Nixonian when it comes to protecting these animals. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.